Yeah, right. Yeah. Hey, welcome to Making Something New with Open Systems. We are a group of game designers, and I think every one of us has used an open system in some sort of way to make games. And Sylvia and I, when we were talking about panels for indie games at PAX, we're really excited to talk about open systems. My name is Richard Ruane. I'm the creator of Moonlight on Roseville Beach and Sherwood. Sherwood is based on a game that's not an open system, so I just cheated. Moonlight on Roseville Beach also based on a game that's not an open system, so I also cheated there too.
First, list all the ways you're not qualified for the panel.
But I've also used the Mark of the Odd system and PBTA and several other open systems. And I am going to start to my right with Elliot Davis.
That's me.
Yeah, who's also going to do an intro. So.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Elliot Davis. Pronouns he, him. I also go by More Blueberries everywhere on the internet, as well as in my company and on my taxes. I have made a handful of games, which you can come check out in MITS this week, and use systems like Belonging Outside Belonging and Descended from the Queen, and probably others that I haven't realized I've stolen stuff from.
Hi, I am Nell, they, them. I am one half of a game design team called Spilled Coffee Creatives. We are also next door in MITS. Sorry to steal the answer from you, but we have used PBTA and Basic Universal Role-Playing System.
Hi, I'm Allie, she, her. I'm the other half of Spilled Coffee Creatives.
Hi, I'm John Boyle, he, they. I'm at Resident Bard most places on the internet, and I am one half of Bright Bard Games. We're also demoing MITS this weekend, surprise, surprise. What some of our very first games that we made were Lasers and Feelings Hacks, which I feel like is sort of an iconic entry in the open license games category, but we've been playing around a lot in the Havoc engine as well.
Hello. Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I can't tell. My name is Bree, and I am the other half of Breitbart Games, and I am an artist. I do all of the art and direction and making books look pretty. So, yeah, I haven't done a lot of the systeming stuff, but I'm here to talk about all the other stuff. Oh boy, hello.
If you have questions about anything Bree just said, we'll take those later.
Yes, yeah. Don't worry about me. I'm just an artist.
And I think it loops back around to me. Hi, I'm David Piccolomini, he, him. I work with a team called DGB Games, where we've made games with Powered by the Apocalypse and Forged in the Dark.
All right. I'm just going to make this as strange as possible for Elliot and I to share a microphone.
Okay.
Oh, no. This is weirder, better.
Yeah.
If we're like, hi.
Richard, do you just want to switch seats?
No.
Okay, no, all right.
Yeah, the people that
This
run
is
games
great.
videos
Yeah,
together
I know.
will not
I'm
share a
charged
microphone.
here.
I have one for myself.
Hey, so I think one of the first questions I have for you guys is when you decide to use an open system, what is it you are looking for? You will notice from our character introductions, our character bios, our introductions, that none of us are using any of the open systems that come from WotC. None of us are using any of the open systems that come from Paizo. And those are all intentional choices on our part. But when you start to pick an indie game system that is open, what is it you are specifically looking for, whether it be legalities, system matters, what is it you are looking for? And I'll take volunteers first, and then I'll pick on somebody.
I mean, legality number one, is it legal?
Yeah.
If it's not, don't don't bother with it.
That is also kind of nebulous, as we're already off the rails. Like, because there is like all the legal precedents where you can't copyright like game mechanics, and like it's like you can mostly copyright theme, which is where like why like the D20 stuff and like all the WotC stuff ends up being like it's like somebody's black tentacle, or like.
Okay, no, that's actually a good point. I guess I'll reframe that. We tend to look for gaming systems that have been like openly offered by the creator. We love engaging with systems that the person who made them is excited for other people to engage with them in that way. So that's a jumping off point.
Yeah, that's that's much nicer than what I said. I would say a lot of it is like theming, because a lot of like how games for me work is like I have a weird idea that I'm like, oh, I want to live in this world for 2 to 4 hours. What are the mechanics I want to incorporate? And like a lot of times the first thing you do is I'll just start Googling what other games exist there in like the mech world. And then it's like, what systems are they using? What are they using from that to create the mechanics that make it feel like you're chomping around with a big monster on your, versus like mech versus kaiju, and where do the mechanics differ in those games? So I'll just read a bunch of games like that and see what filters out and what ends up feeling most, to me, what will feel like the theme of what's happening, like, and get people to feel like they're just little guys in whatever world I put.
Yeah, I feel like in addition to theme, the thing that I'm always looking for in a system, if I want to use it, is what the play style and play experience that a system offers is. Like, is this a often used for single session, fast-paced storytelling game? Is it a storytelling system? Is it a campaign system? Is it, crunchy? Is it story forward? Like, what are the play experiences that the system offers, and what is the play experience I'm trying to go for the game I want to make?
I feel like another thing to look at is the character building experience, and how do you want players to be able to create the character that they're going to play, and that also is very informative on where to start looking.
This is like back towards the legality side of things, but one of the things that I really honestly love to see on other like game developers' websites is like a list of like, here's the things you can and can't do. Like here's the stuff that we encourage you to do. Here's how you can use this stuff. That's the kind of stuff like when I'm looking around, casting around for systems, like kind of collecting my pocket full of like, oh, do I want to use like D6? Do I want to use a full polyhedral set? I'll collect like a handful of those, and I'll go to the developers' websites and see like, okay, do you have a page that tells me here are all of our systems, and here's what parts of them you can use, and here's what parts of them you can't. That's enormously helpful when people do that, and so that's high on my list of stuff.
That sort of transitions nicely. Sorry, Elliot, I'm cheating the microphone now
okay.
away from you.
I should be sharing with Nell. You should have your own mic.
I feel so offended right now. It's okay. I think one of the things that we talked a little bit about before, when we talk about sort of like what can you use from a system, and where is it open to borrowing, where have the creators made it explicit, is the difference between systems that have a really explicit SRD, a system resource document, or a creator kit, or some other open license. Like you open the text of the game and it says the whole text of this game is Creative Commons by. Does everybody know sort of the basic types of Creative Commons in here? Or yeah. Creative Commons by is just the Creative Commons that says like, hey, just attribute the original creator. It's the most common. I shouldn't say the most common because I've never studied that, but it's one of the more popular Creative Commons.
The most common.
It's probably the most common. The other one that we would call an open license is called Creative Commons Share Alike, in which it's like you may use this, you attribute the author. Also, you have to make your work that you make with this Creative Commons as well. Or use a similar. I cannot remember the legal term, but you have to make it similarly open. Without adding restrictions. But there's also, I think a lot of us have used things like Powered by the Apocalypse, which are based on Apocalypse World, heavily inspired by Apocalypse World, and that is not a formal license at all, but that is something that the creators have said like, hey, feel free to kind of play in our sandbox. Do you have things that excite you or that you hesitate about when you are using PBTA? Or I think, Elliot, you've also done some work with Belonging Outside Belonging, No Dice, No Masters, which is also similarly like Avery Alder has never issued a license, but has said like, hey, here's my sandbox, come play in it. For that, what sort of informs your decision or helps you sort of think about sort of things that are less structured when you, and I've actually used Meg Baker's Cyrun a good bit, other designers also have. Just because there's designers who are very excited about opening their work and letting other people play on their playground, but have never written, said of like, hey, use this. What informs that decision for you guys? And again, I will take volunteers, or I will start picking on people.
When it comes to Apocalypse World very specifically, because that was the first
Okay,
game
yeah.
we ever published was a PBTA, as I think many people start out with, there's no open, there's no one document that lays it all out, but that's kind of what the book is for. The book itself of Apocalypse World and so many of the other PBTA games, Monster of the Week, Monster Hearts, Root, just by reading the games, reading multiple games that use the system, you can start to see a little bit of connective tissue, a little bit of what makes a game feel like PBTA, what it is that all of the games have in common, or what some of them don't have in common, what each of them uniquely bring. And so even if there's not one open source document, we're big researchers. We like to do a lot of reading and a lot of playing games within a system and getting the very kind of tactile, interactive sense for it that way.
Yeah, is it a Powered by the Apocalypse game if it doesn't have a sex mechanic in it? It's there, and then Monster Hearts picks up the torch.
Yeah, I would echo the thing about finding multiple steps down the lineage of a system. I think is generally how I found myself in a system, is like Belonging Outside Belonging is a system I really love that is like a token economy kind of pacing sort of storytelling system, and that started with Dream Askew, Dream Apart by Avery Alder and Benjamin Rosenbaum. But when I became aware of that system was through games like Thursday by Ellie Seitz and Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast by Jay Dragon and Maisie Veselak. And so seeing how those systems change over time, and then I can see like, oh, here's where I jump into the lineage of this and the things that I like that they changed from this system that I do really love.
We've had a similar experience. I think we have like a whole series of one-pagers that we publish, and they started like as very kind of cut and dried lasers and feelings hacks, but you can kind of watch in real time with each one that we published as we like strayed further and further, because I would like every year I would see more people doing interesting things in like the one-page RPG space, and other people like playing around with versions of Honey Heist or versions of like Lasers and Feelings. And so like, you have 2 stats, Cobalt and Trenchcoat, you have 2 stats, Lasers and Feelings, whatever it may be. There's still a lot of like wiggle room. There's funky little like mechanics you can introduce there, and so the more kind of you read farther down, I think the more kind of inspiration you can pull into your own work. So I got to be closer to the mic.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly pulling it.
Yeah, you always trail off. Like you always trail off.
It's also.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Okay. Either way, it's one of those things where it's. It's funny because they'll say it's not the core feature of PBTA, but it's the thing people probably adapt the most is roll 2d6. Great, okay, bad is like, and it's because it's such an easy storytelling engine to use. So like, even if a game our game that we're working on now, Road Warriors, it started out with PBTA. And then it was like, okay, this is effectively telling the story somewhat, but what other engines can we play with? And then basically 4 of us took a different engine each, kind of retrofitted our game to it, and then we played all of them, and then it was like, oh, this is the one that feels the most, this is really locking into that energy. And then we took a couple things from the other systems that we played and mashed it all together into what the game is.
I'm curious now, what were the systems you took from, and then we'll get back to down here.
So some like a weird one is like that we weren't push SRD. Because it was just some of the ways like they built their tables were really good and then I built a character creator for our game, because one of the other things, like if you're working on a game that's like a different type of world than like fantasy or sci-fi that people are, locked into, you have to create all the ways that they fit into that world through different things. And it was like getting people to not make a character that was Mitch Hedberg. So it's like now you're like a weird guy who does apostate stuff. And it's like, so like pulling from that, and what else do we pull from? Oh, Alien, a little bit for like some of the stress mechanic stuff of how that goes. Because a lot of times we were pulling from horror games, because that's bad stuff happening to your characters. And if you get rid of the death mechanic, what is a horror game but pretty funny?
And down here.
Oh, I was going to say a pretty similar thing, just in something else that we like to look at when we're looking at a system is really only taking the elements that feel like they're serving how we want to move the game forward. And just because you're using a system doesn't mean you have to use every single element of it. But similar.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me, I think, as a nice segue to my next question, which is when you use something that has a really sort of formal license or structure, such as Forged in the Dark, which I know David is working on, or Lasers and Feelings that is now under an explicit Creative Commons license retroactively. When you are looking at those things, what are you looking for, and when do you sort of like make a decision to pull something from another system, to bring your own ideas in, to pull something out? What is sort of your process on sort of like making those decisions about like how do like it's time to like no this like pulling from Apocalypse World, like we don't need Apocalypse World Second Edition's 3 pages of core moves. Like we don't need that. So like, or if you're pulling from Forged in the Dark, we don't need. I was about to say position in effect. I know that like every Forged in the Dark fan will start throwing things at me. And
that's the one thing you need.
But where do you decide what you don't need? I know that John's working on some Spencer Campbell licenses right now. So like, where do you decide that like, hey Spencer, that's enough? So I'll switch to John, just right there to answer that question in your face, Spencer.
Yeah, pitch it right over to me. And actually, for me personally, like a lot of times what it is like Spencer really strips down and really, really likes combat in his games and is very interested in like fast, lightweight, easy to use combat systems that feel like fun and high powered. And I also like that, but I also like the role-playing side of Spencer's games for me feels like a little too light for me almost. And so I find myself very often looking at that system and going like, I like a lot of the stuff you have here, but I want to like sneak in a few more pieces to this. Like I need just a little bit more to like grab onto for it to be evocative for the kind of stories that I'd like this game to tell. And so I think it really comes down to like, what do you want the emotional experience of your game to be? And then looking at your mechanics and saying, can I easily achieve that? Am I providing enough of a framework for the people who step into my game to like kind of replicate the experience that I want them to be able to have on average? Because obviously there's a huge breadth of experience when somebody picks up and reads your rules compared to like what you expect versus what actually happens at any number of tables, where it's very far out of your hands by that point.
Playtesting. I just real short playtesting. Just you try it and it feels wrong. Is the best. Like it's the best thing. You try it, you're like, nope, that doesn't. And then when you've played a bunch of games, you're like, what if like at one point we had Wanderhome in our game because we need to create rich locales, and it was like, well, this is taking too long and isn't really getting to the point of the game. So you just playtest them all.
We definitely look for tropes and touchstones within the genre, within the kind of world of media, whatever it is we're exploring in our games. We often have a couple of particular elements that we know are really important to often many people who engage with that, and kind of finding parallels within a system, saying, for PBTA, playbooks are really heavily representative often of archetypes, and, different character archetypes within certain media are much more strongly coded certain ways. And so knowing what you're looking for in terms of these are a few elements of that genre that I'm pulling from, here is where the system has elements that could overlap with those touchstones, can be a helpful way to figure out what's really key to you and what maybe doesn't feel as closely tied in.
I think also a thing in like the most lazy sense is what don't I want to design for my game? Like what's the thing that I don't want to have to make whole cloth? Like if this system has really good character creation and I don't want to get bogged down in character creation because what this game is about is like, you know, dramatic wrestling or something. Like you want to focus on that element of it, and the character creation is already great in this other system, so take it, reflavor it. So I think that there can be a certain level of like, what don't I want to spend a lot of time on in my design? What's the core of the design that I care a lot about focusing on? What has already been solved in another system?
Also, anything you can do to simplify your game is better. Almost always, anywhere where you can get the same feeling with a little less like action economy thought is always going to be cut ruthlessly.
Did you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I think one of the questions that I have kind of following up on that is when does the thing you're designing become part of a different system or tradition entirely? Because I have designed, Roseville Beach started as something between a Forge in the Dark game and a hack of Spencer's Lumen, and it became something else entirely. Largely because I wanted everything on your character sheet to matter. I wanted everything about your character bio to matter. And there it's, we're adding like specific things to specific other things and everything else gets ignored. Where for you guys does that shift happen where you sort of like pull things back and pull things away and just like, this is no longer PBTA, which I think is where Avery sort of ended up with Belonging Outside Belonging. And I also think that's partially, where Story Brewers ended up with the fantastic game Good Society, which also was rooted in PBTA, but then sort of pulled
Forge
back.
even.
Yeah. Forge in the Dark started as Bootlegger as a PBTA game.
Yeah.
Sorry for RPG history moment here. But
the
where
open
for
source.
you guys feel like it's like you start like play testing, as David mentioned, and pull back and make the decision to turn something into something else. That you have the core of something here and it's now transformed so far away from its roots. What do you make decisions on? And again, I will start picking on people if there are no volunteers. And the first person I pick on will probably be Elliot. So yeah, y'all are really rescuing Elliot right now.
I have a thought on this.
Yes.
You don't have to keep we will talk.
Yeah, I love
keep
yapping.
threading us.
I don't. It's one of those things where I think that distinction is up to someone other than me, who then like if they decide that my creation is distinct enough from the system it was based on, and they want to say like I made a Descended from the Queen game that plays very different from For the Queen, but I love For the Queen, and without For the Queen that game would not exist. But there are a lot of changes I made where I could see someone now taking that game, making something else from it and saying, no, this is based on the time we have, not For the Queen, even though the time we have would not exist without For the Queen. So I will always credit For the Queen in that game, but somebody else could easily pick that up and say, no, this is its own thing and I want to build off of this now. And that's the really fun thing about the like lineage of these systems.
Thank you. I think like the part where I start drawing the line and going like, I think I've made something else entirely is like looking at the system resource document for any given system and going, if I handed somebody the Lumen SRD, for instance, and then gave them my game, could they like comfortably make stuff for it? And if the answer is no, then I've probably arrived at something fairly novel. Even with something like one of our recent games, Trash to Treasure, which is based on Rowan Rook and Deckard's Eat the Reich, they're two very differently themed games. Like one of them is a blood-soaked like murder spree through Nazi-occupied Paris, and the other one is like an anti-capitalist kind of like Captain Planet meets Sailor Moon homage, where you're a bunch of magical girl goblins recycling trash into magic to fix your city. But under the hood, they're very similar dice systems, but then we go in and we tinker with a whole bunch of stuff, and now, like, as we're starting to, like, release adventures and stuff for it, and people are asking, like, okay, so we've played through the core game and we'd like to play some more beyond the chapters that you've written, I can't, like, go to the Havoc engine SRD and be like, yeah, just use this to write it, because I'm like, oh, no, there's a lot of stuff that went into this on top of it now that I have to, like, document for you. And I'm like, okay, so we've got at the very least a spin-off of what was the Havoc engine that has become what powers Trash to Treasure.
Basically, if someone asks you to make your own SRD for a game, if someone else makes you, like, how did you make this game? And you can't be like, well, you're like, oh, I have to write a document about it so you can know how I made this game. You've made a different game.
I think it's like, it's one of those things where it becomes like such a nebulous distinction that it's almost usually better. I think about it more as a touchstone. It's like, hey, do you know how to play this game? Then you already know 2/3 of how to play my game. Like, and it's like, sure, this part, like there's going to be some other fiddly parts that are different, but like, it's so much easier to be like, hey, you know, Powered by the Apocalypse, you can already do this.
I feel like almost in the opposite direction. We always, when we do games, we always include an influences section in the back, because I feel like even if we're not taking a system and using it, kind of like what Ellie was saying, there's always another game out there that you first played that kind of sparked or had something similar. So that's kind of how we go about it when we're in that little bit of murky.
All right, so another tricky question. You don't have an idea for a whole new game. You have an idea for an additional character class or a thing you'd like to see in more games of a certain type. When you're looking at SRDs or compatibility licenses, and compatibility license SRDs, not exactly the same thing. There are frequently, when you are going to use somebody's compatibility logo, there are additional terms other than just using their SRD or just using the open license. For a long time, to get a PBTA logo, you had to write Megan Vincent Baker, which is, you know,
Just a nice email.
Threaten me with a good time. Yeah, it's just two hyper smart, kind people. But when do you, like, how, like, especially if you have like a kind of a broad idea, like, oh, this could fit, you know, a few different games. How do you make those decisions there? For adventures, settings, character classes, anything you're going to add like that, what do you start looking for in those kind of licenses?
Like when we're doing for our own games, or
just
like,
for when you're producing something that's not going to be a standalone game. Yeah. I had just asked a lot of people who create mainly standalone games.
That's all right.
But I was like, I did a Fiasco like playbook.
Yeah.
Like I made one of those, but that was just very much like, I took it kind of as a writing exercise, as like, it's like, oh, we had a fun idea for a place. Like, well, in Fiasco is the easiest place to do it. There's a million of like those kind of like, it was just like, oh, what if it's the 80s and you play a bunch of pixies and run a nightclub? That's a place for Fiasco. Great.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, and then it was just my friends talking about it enough that we're like, okay, well, let's see if we can make it, because now we make games.
Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, who's got their weird D20 mod they want to talk about? It's the Revolutionary War, but it's D20. I think that actually exists.
It definitely exists.
Okay, that was at MAGFest last year.
Sorry, I was too
Don't worry, when the panel's recorded, we're gonna edit all these silences out.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, we're gonna edit every single silence out. Yeah.
We've been playing around with the idea, but we haven't done anything with it yet, which is like mainly because we've been making such small games. Like, once you get to being like, I want to make a big book about weird stuff, you're kind of like, well, do I make a big book and also make all of the mechanics, or do I just want to write lore? So like, if you're like, I just want to write lore, then you're gonna put it on something else's. Put it on someone else's game, because you're like, I just want to write about my story and then have someone have fun in this setting or whatever. You don't necessarily be like, I have making also a mechanic a thing, and then you're in the D&D thing where like, I'm making 3 books. Like, but when you're making small games, you're kind of like, how can I make the settings and the mechanics the same, basically, or like the lore and the mechanics the same, so it's like thematically good, but when you're making like setting stuff, you're kind of like, okay, I'm thinking about mechanics and lore in two different ways, I would say.
This is not really what you asked, but
That's my favorite
it's
answer.
tangentially
Yeah.
related. I think time is a zero-sum game. And so it's actually interesting that you ask that, because before we were making full games, we did start by doing, custom playbooks for Monster Hearts and custom homebrew stuff that was just for us and for our games. And none of that has ever gone anywhere or been anything, and we don't, times a zero-sum game, have the time or the energy for that to be our focus. But I do think those sort of small part and parcel, I have this idea, I'm interested to see how this works, can be a good kind of lead up to designing bigger games and getting into open systems, and a good way to test out how playing with existing mechanics works, what's exciting to you, what's fun to you, even if you don't end up wanting to do anything with it beyond, being a siren in your home Monster Hearts game.
I think about I have not made third-party supplements for things except for like a very small Eusebius thing. But the one game that I've always wanted to make something for that I'm very tempted to is the Mothership, universe of third-party supplements, because, and I think that this maybe is an answer to your question, the thing that is so tempting about the Mothership world is how robust the third-party creation scene is, and how much it seems like people are having fun playing in that world, and the flexibility with which people play in that world. And that little M is on 1,000 zines probably out there, and then 1,000 other digital ones. So
It stands for both mature
that's a
and
hope.
Mothership.
Yeah.
I asked this specifically because my good friend Bridget Jeffries, who runs Chaosium's community content program, talks about community content, third-party licenses being the way so many people enter the space.
Yeah.
All right, our last formal question before we, second to last formal question before we get to audience questions. When somebody is making an SRD or community content guide, all of us here have used them. What is something, everyone but Elliot has used them, but Elliot is, I sincerely listen to Elliot's advice on almost everything. So, what is something you wish they would do, or what's something a best practice you wish more people would do? And speaking as somebody who's just slapped the community content or the Creative Commons license on the front of a game, and then hey, it's yours. Instead of creating sort of an SRD or a creator kit, what is something that you wish people would do more often when they're putting together their SRDs and or creator kits?
One of the things that I really like to see is, following up on what y'all said earlier, I like seeing inspirations at the top of them. I like knowing what kind of game system is this that I'm stepping into? Not just like the nitty-gritty stuff, like here's the mechanics, here's how you resolve things, here's when you should and shouldn't use these things, here's all of the pieces of the game system and how to arrange them in different ways, but what's the goal of this set of Legos that I've given you? What have you given me? A bunch of things that get me arranged into a bunch of houses? Can you give me a bunch of things that you expect me to arrange into a car? Just knowing what emotional experience kind of do you expect people to design out of this? And that gives me a little bit of a framework. It's something that I know Spencer does at the top of the Lumen SRD, where he's here's all of the things that I was inspired by, when I started writing the game that became this resource document, and here's the kind of stuff that I expect you'll design with it.
I have not seen this done, but I want it. So this is my challenge. I want somebody's cut content. I want to know what didn't make it into the game. I want to know what their favorite thing was that they couldn't make work. I know we have pet mechanics that we've had to cut from games that just weren't serving what we were doing that I would love to see somebody else take and do something with. So I would love an SRD that just has a whole list of, here's everything I threw at the wall that didn't stick, because I think it's cool to see, one, what designers tried and discarded and what different people's thought processes are, and two, how different things can work in different systems and in different ways.
What's one of the mechanics that you got rid of?
Oh boy. Come back to us.
Okay.
A big one is copy and pastable text that you need me to legally put in my game. That's huge.
Yeah. Because a lot of the stuff, I actually like when they leave it more like dry as a document. I like the influences and stuff, but like part of it, like especially like when I've read more stuff about PBTA, is like all the stuff they were like, here's what we thought it would be, and everybody's just done fuck all and everything with it that we never would have dreamed of. And like, you know, like why limit the imagination to the creator of the game? They're so in the soup. They don't actually know what their game is good for half the time. I don't know what I'm saying.
Just insults.
Just to sort of play on that, I think one of the cool things Spencer does with the Luminar SRD is say, here's 5 things I think this SRD is good for, and then I ignored that when I used it.
Which is a large portion of what I'm doing with a big work in progress I have right now, where I was like, this is all really cool. I'm going to ignore half of it.
I think creators should read that critically and reflectively, but I think it is very helpful when people are like, hey, here's what the creator thinks this resonates with.
I think it's really helpful for when you're going through and deciding what you do and don't want, because then you kind of are going like, oh, I see why you did this because you were going for this, even if it's not necessarily the way that I would have done it or am planning to do it in the thing that I'm making. So I think it helps just like, it helps me like identify those little pieces of like design inspiration, and then that helps me like run down the rabbit hole of like how I want to make it novel myself, or like, you know, copy paste it into whatever.
Anyone else on that one? All right, guys. This is the question. This is not the easy question. It's the one where you're gonna have to make critical choices, and I'm gonna fail to make them because I'm gonna ask you for one, and I'm gonna give you 2. What SRDs, creator kits, licensing programs out there are you most excited or about or interested in? And it may not be for your own work, but just like to see what comes out of them in the bigger game space. I frequently joke that there are 3 perfect games. One is Cyrun, one is Liminal Horror, and one is Orbital Blues. And everything else is just, you know, whatever. I am pretty sure that once I get to play more games, that will change. But that will change probably every 5 minutes as soon as I'm at like a gaming focused convention. But I really am fascinated by both the Liminal Horror and the Orbital Blues spaces, because those are such rich adventure focused spaces. They have such rich narrative potential. Orbital Blues is a space game from Soul Muppet. It is sad space cowboys, and there is a decided tone and theme to the game, but it also that resonates through doing a whole broad range of types of adventures. And Liminal Horror is a beautiful little horror game, and it's not even little anymore. Their SRD encompasses all 3 editions they released. Because it's just such a great place to write mysteries for. So for the rest of us, what are the open systems that you are most interested and excited about? And I will start with David this time.
All right. So I'm gonna kind of also. So it's actually there's like I don't know what system it was from, but I was playing a game at Metatopia that had shared DMing. And it was just that whole mechanic has been really, and then combining that with games that are not really designed to be like winners and losers type games, like the Wuxia system, and like pairing it with that, where it's like, oh, we're just kind of telling a fun story with each other, but we're all kind of making it up as we go. And since we all kind of don't know where it's going and all kind of know where it's going, it's creating that balance and stuff, and just getting people to do really silly stuff with it.
And I'm going to loop down to the far side, if it's okay, Bree.
Oh.
If you want me to pass, I can and come back to you. I can do that.
I mean, I really don't have much of an answer because I personally don't play in the SRD space myself. I am the ideas guy, but I in general just really like seeing how people use the different games that have role play mechanics. Mainly, there are a lot of them out there, so I'll just give a broader answer because I'm less knowledgeable about the specifics, but role-play mechanics are some of my favorite things because it allows people to, like, you can obviously just like act until you decide to do combat, but it's so much more fun when you're like, I have walls to be in and I get to like bounce between them and see what feels right to me, and I love stuff like that. So that's my wishy-washy answer.
One of the joys of going to a lot of tabletop RPG cons is seeing what new and exciting nouns people have put in front of the word Borg.
It's a good game.
It's like, it feels like I should have a bingo card sometimes, and I do. One of my entry to tabletop RPGs was doing a lot of editing work, and I did a lot of like OSR space editing, and so there's always really fun, weird, funky stuff happening in there, and so I love seeing what people are noodling around with over there.
I've threatened to write the romance version Smoochborg.
Ooh,
I've threatened.
see, it's such a rich formula.
It's at best $1,000.
I will draw
idea.
so many people kissing, Richard.
Yeah, so many.
So many.
Kind of more on a personal, I'll kind of mention this. We are kind of, it's not a new thing at all, but kind of exploring the basic role-playing system. Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm enamored about with that is just how much content there is in there. And I really like the being able to pick and choose, like, oh, I really like this element, and I really like this element, and how can I make those work together? So just, it's so many different types of things can come out of that, and I think that's really exciting that they all have the same core.
My answer, I actually don't know if it's open system, and we're going to learn momentarily. But the latest thing I read that I haven't stopped thinking about is Elliot Davis's The Time We Have Left. And what an incredibly... The time we have?
That's the whole time.
I really messed that one up. We're going to edit that in the video for me. But it's a really incredibly specific conversation game that feels like the way it works could apply to so many different types of really high stakes, really impactful conversations in a really beautiful, seamless way. Go find him at MITS.
Did I tell you about the person at PAX who said they're making a hack that is Orpheus and Eurydice?
That's fucking amazing.
That's my answer.
Yeah. I'm actually sick about it. To draw through line through some of the things I've said, the current one I'm really excited about is actually Forged in the Dark, and I know I am like 4 years too late to that excitement. But it's not because of Blades, which I played 4 years ago and loved. It's because I played Slug Blaster this year, and I think Slug Blaster showed me an evolution of what Forged in the Dark could be that for the first time made me go, oh, I want to make something like that. And if you don't know, Slug Blaster is about teenage hoverboarders traveling across dimensions and trying to be cool and angsty. So can't recommend it enough. So yeah, Forged in the Dark.
I have a second answer now that I've thought about it.
Yeah.
Arts and crafts games. I love one of the games that we produced was an arts and crafts game, and it was based on like Wreck This Deck and a bunch of things like that. And I love seeing more people do things with physical media and using the physical media and making art as part of the gameplay. That's my real answer. There we go.
I play tested a game where I made a puppet.
That's so cool.
A sock puppet. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, tacking onto my earlier answer, and that I love when people gamify mundane activities. When we make normal stuff we do in our everyday lives just a little bit magical, or we reframe it somehow. And so anytime somebody's got something that's like, hey, take a walk and also play this game on it,
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh,
Yes.
Ooh, the
Tourist Hole
dishwashing
from
game.
Mike Martin's about the game about road trips that you play on a road trip. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Really good.
Road trip games, card games, tarot games, walking games, all of them. They're great.
Spin the bottle.
Spin the
Yeah.
bottle.
Hey, that's a core mechanic in Smoochborg. I will have you.
You can't leak Richard's secrets like that.
You gotta make smooth sport.
I think this is the point at which we turn the questions over to you. I will, because this is a question. This is a place where you might ask very specific questions. We will tell you, none of us can give you legal advice about what you can and cannot do in publishing.
It won't stop us.
Yeah, it won't stop us from advising you, or telling you what we would do. But we cannot give you any sort of binding legal advice unless somebody here is a secret attorney that's licensed in the state of Maryland and secretly can. But questions from the audience, and we will repeat the question. I'm just reminding myself that we will do that. And our producer, Silviana, had her hand up first, so I'm going to...
Sure did. David touched on this briefly earlier when you said that sometimes you make a game and you ask someone, oh, do you know this? Great. Then you know 2/3 of the mechanics of my game. When you are thinking about what open systems to use for your game, how much do you think about your intended audience and what systems they might already be familiar with and like that would make them more likely to pick up and play the game you're making?
So essentially, like, how much of a role does audience have on the intended system or on the system we choose, or like the familiarity, specifically audience familiarity, their ability to easily pick up and play. All right, I will hand this over to the panel, having now repeated the question.
Our bad business answer is, I think, not at all.
Yeah, that was honestly going to be my answer too. Is I don't expect anyone to have played a role-playing game ever. That's generally our audience, which is fun. But it's usually we market our games to board gamers that have never played a role-playing game, which is why we make games that have really tactile components. Because if you know how to move a dice from one place to another, you've already figured out how to sort of the workflow of the game. So things like that, but also anybody that's ever been able to talk to another person and have a good flow of conversation. That's also important.
I was going to say, I think a lot about intended audience in terms of like which systems to pick. It's more of in terms of how, like, what components I want to use for the game. Like, it was really important for Road Warriors to be a D6 system so that if you're brand new to role playing, you can just raid your Monopoly bag and be able to play it. Because it's a game about being a comedian, it's not necessarily going to have the same audience as a lot of traditional role-playing games. So I do think a lot about it in terms of what is going to be available for the person easily who will want to play this game.
Anything else?
I was just gonna say, instead of familiarity, I think more about accessibility. How accessible are these systems to people? Which is similar to what you're saying about D6s.
Yeah, there's been a number of times where I'll be fiddling around with a new game or system idea, and I'll be like, maybe we can make this a tarot deck game. And I'm like, wait, how many people actually own a tarot deck though?
Enough people do, but more people own random card decks. So yeah.
Next question, right over here.
So this was actually spurred on by your discussions about differing open source games, like Into the Dark, the other one. I recently was reading through a PDF copy of the RPG guide, which is by the people who made Spire and Heart. It's a really interesting system that uses a lot of elements from Blades in the Dark in terms of the dice pool system, but it also uses a unique element Grip from D&D. Every single player is getting a unique dice. Only one player is an E4, only one player is an E8, E12, E20, and so on. I was thinking about this specifically in conjunction with another game that stumbled across my desk recently, The Far Roots by Jenna Moran. And it's a system that has conflict resolution of
That's awesome.
This kind of had me thinking, you think there's a good sweet spot for introducing like unique mechanics into a game that's not something standard framework, or is there a point where it would just become too much?
That's a really good question, and I will. Look, I'm the D6 guys person. Like, I'm writing my first game that uses a D20 in like forever right now. So I will pass this off to.
Did you repeat the question?
Yeah. Oh yeah, let's repeat the question. At what point does it good to like bring in unique, interesting mechanics, specifically about using things other than dice, cards? You mentioned Scrabble tiles from the far roofs. And at what point does that like work? And when you're working with an SRD or a creative system, at what point does it change things too much or become too complex? So,
I think it goes back to, is it serving what you're thematically trying to do and get your players to feel? Because if people can tell that it is thematically serving, they'll be excited to get those things and to use them. But if it's just like, oh, this is a gimmick because they thought it would be fun, it becomes more of like a slog to have it.
I was going to, in kind of a similar thing of, I think the gimmick has to match the buy-in. Because if you want people to like go and play a 4-hour game and then they need to like buy, a basketball and a hula hoop and stuff to just and that's going to be part of the game for 4 hours, that, okay, we have to get up and do this. But like, if it's like a 30-minute thing, try a weird mechanic. Why not? I want to use an electric blanket as a mechanic for a game. I want to make the coziest TTRPG.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the like adding something to an SRD, and I always want to think about, again, like accessibility. What is something that I can have players add that they don't have to go out and buy, like a basketball? I know that was like facetious, but like the game that I have that uses Belonging Outside Belonging, the only thing that is added to it that really changes it from other Belonging Outside Belonging games is a timer. And everybody can set a timer up on their phone, so it's like, that's easy.
Yeah, the internet does give us a lot of gifts. And there are, at this, obviously, physical dice are fun, but if you need somebody to have a D100, there are now online dice rollers. So it is a matter of finding what feels really important to your game. Are there workarounds? Instead of, if somebody needs to flip a coin, they don't have a coin, can they roll a D6, 1 through 3, 4 through 6? Is there troubleshooting? Now, there obviously is a point where the troubleshooting becomes more cumbersome than the game. So I agree that it's about how core does that thing feel to your experience. And you can't look up a hula hoop on the internet, so that's different.
Get a VR hula hoop, probably.
The weird example that I think of is that I think has fallen out of favor recently, but had its moment, was Fate. And it occurs to me that one of the challenges of playing Fate was Fate, but also you had to have unique dice, you had to have special dice, you had to like track those down, which is easier now than it used to be. They did not used to show up on the Fate dice did not used to show up on dice rollers, and they are a minus, a null, and a plus, which is really hard to convert from other dice. And you had to have chips, not potato chips, but poker chips, which, having hunted through New York City for a last-minute version of Fate for poker chips, not as easy to find as you think they might be. Anything else people want to add on that one? I think, how quickly do you plan to get it to the table and can you easily get it to the table is, I think, one of the...
Think about explaining it to your friends. Yeah. Does it sound like a fun time?
Yeah.
I have to do what? No.
And then I think we had one question over here, right there. Yeah.
I feel like when we are like hacking other games, we fall into the danger of like praying at the altar of Apocalypse World, and like at all of these games that everybody hacks, and it feels like, oh, it is just accepted knowledge that, and not necessarily just Apocalypse World, but that X game, Y game, like they have good mechanics at doing this thing, good mechanics at doing that thing. But this is a fucking subjective art form. I'm curious, while trying to like take inspiration from a game,
you have any hot takes? I'm just like, no, I don't want to use that. No, that game sucks. Like, everybody else is wrong.
I wish more people would worship at the altar of Apocalypse World because it is the best PBTA game. Sorry for anybody who has the wrong opinion. I wish people would. I really like look at some of the stuff that Bakers did in that game, and I feel like a lot of people ran away with weird stuff about like, oh, it's great for genre emulation. I'm like, that's not what Apocalypse World is. It's its own genre. So anyway, I will pass this to actual members of the panel. So. What are your hottest takes?
I have an insane amount of respect for Apocalypse World and also no interest in making a Powered by the Apocalypse game, personally.
Okay, we'll play with it. I played a DCC game recently, and we came out with 3 characters each at the end of the funnel. And it was like, oh, if we're just not idiots who walk in immediately, our characters don't die. And like a lot of that felt like they were like, it's really hard. And I was like, unless you like to role play, could like play around with like the thing. It felt very much like you were like they wanted us to just like, that was part of the fun, is running them into the trap to die. And it's like I wanted more of the challenge of that.
Anybody else who's willing to just go on record with insane hot takes?
Yeah, I don't care.
No, my really boring take is that usually when a lot of people love a game, there's something about the game to love. And it's about finding what that is. And that thing may not be the thing that's right for you or for your game. But often if there's a game that is popular that I don't feel positively about myself, I actually challenge myself to sit down and say, what is it that so many people do love about this game? What is it that I'm missing? And I often can learn a lot by doing that.
That's very nice. That's a very nice answer.
All right, I feel like we're close on time. Do us any last audience questions, then we'll do, yeah, right there.
So I was wondering, and a couple of you touched on this earlier, especially the comment about, a game designer maybe, not having an idea that like a player does for where to take a game. In general, when you're either looking for a game that you want to play or you design, I know some games have very kind of crunchy specific mechanics. Other ones have a lot of extremely fuzzy definitions that might give a little more freedom, but they also depend on having players that are maybe a lot more willing to role play and like play around with it. Where do you fall on your personal preference on how crunchy or loose like mechanics?
So the question is, let me repeat it back to make sure I'm getting it too. The question is, where do we fall on like when we're trying to decide what's crunchy and what's loose, essentially? Yeah, like how do we make those decisions, especially given the fact that we may be starting with an SRD or with just established play conventions. Where do we make those decisions? So John, you're reaching for a mic, so I'm gonna.
I said it earlier, and we've touched on it a couple of times, but I think it really comes down to what you think the emotional experience of your game is. So like a lot of times when I'm ideating a game, that's like kind of in the top few things of my like notes document, is like what kind of game is this, and then what's it really about? What's the most important thing? And like I, as a game designer, think a lot about the like haptic kind of tactile experience. What am I doing with my hands when I play the game? And so that's where I'll think a lot about the mechanics and like what's important for me to have fun physically and emotionally playing the game. And then whatever mechanics are in service of that, like I'll allow to be as complex as they need to be or as simple as they need to be. And then everything else around that I try and keep as kind of lightweight or efficient or like connected in some way that it reduces the load of the player like moving from one part of the game to another to it.
This is a very personal, like, specific taste answer. But I come from a theater, an acting background specifically, where you're given a script, you're given blocking, you're given direction, you have all of these tools that you use to find some sort of storytelling or emotional experience. And I don't know if that feeds in, but we like, I think Bree and John were saying this earlier, we like our role play to be so crunchy. We want there to be so many tools and suggestions and guidance for that experience, and we have no combat in most of our games. So all of our crunch goes to role-playing, and we like a lot of crunch.
I think in terms of like a lot of, it's figure out what you want to make it easy for your players to do. Like when you come into a game, a lot of times, like the worst time I ever have playing role-playing games is when I walk in and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I don't know what my character's supposed to do. I have no idea. I'm in the prison. Do we try and escape? Do we try and wait for our chance to strike? What do we do? And so you want it to be crunchy around the spaces where you want them to make where a lot of their thinking is supposed to be. And you want it to be very loose where you don't want a lot of that. Like in our game, there isn't a lot of fighting because you're comedians, so it's all talking. But it was trying to get people to think about the ways in which you talk differently, because basically we took the charm skill and made it 6 skills. It really is. It's like, how do you charm? Do you schmooze them? Do you punish them? How are you trying to get what you want with your words? But then when it comes to anything that's not talking, it's so loose. It's like 3 different things that are basically saves that if you do them, you run the risk of taking a lot of damage. Like if you're fighting in our game, you've already lost.
I will say that I got some really great advice from horror game designer Ian Newsom, and I've been working in horror games for a bit, and I was adding something that was kind of a crunchy fight. And he's like, hey, this game is, horror, especially in RPGs, is frequently a lot about personal horror and lack of control. And the more precise decisions players can make about how they manage their outcomes, especially if you're really going for that sense of personal horror, it's not about what happens to me, it's about what I accidentally do to the world around me without intending. Then those looser mechanics serve you well, because those are frequently the ones where the GM has to set, like you not only didn't hit the person you intended to hit, you hit someone else, which is when you're adding violence to a game of personal horror, the outcomes for the rest of the world are an important part of that. So Ian really was sort of like, hey, you have all these cool ideas that you're borrowing from other Mark of the Odd games, but those are not serving the personal horror vibe of this game. So. I think that is it for time. Do we have time for one more question, panel producer? Yeah. No one's knocking down the door, so yeah. Good. Oh, right there. So, yeah, right there. You in the black T-shirt. So yeah. Yeah. You're good.
So you guys have talked about kind of splicing and dicing stuff you like from different SREs. Do you ever attribute multiple ones in a single product?
Oh, well, we talked about doing attributions, and I think this is a good time to talk a little bit about that. The question is, we talk about splicing and dicing in SRDs, and do we ever attribute more than one in a specific product? I will introduce by saying that is a thing that is really easy to do in Creative Commons and did not work well with other open license things. Creative Commons, you just say X part is from X person, this part is from another person. So that's one of the things I really love about Creative Commons license, but I will pass this off to others. So.
We do that with Axolotl.
Y'all mentioned the inspiration list earlier, and I'm a big inspiration list guy, even if I don't feel like it's a full license use. So yeah, usually most of my games have, 2 or 3 other games as references.
Yeah, I mean, Axolotl with a Gun, one of our games has the Havoc engine as an influence and Lasers and Feelings in the 2 stat systems. So, I mean, we kind of married those 2 things together to make Axolotl with a Gun plus other stuff. But yeah, I don't know, just in the influences kind of do that, or if you really feel like you basically here's 3 things in a trench coat, just list what you did, and be like, this is what I did. Have fun. I don't know.
Over attribution's never bad.
Over attribution, over crediting, over saying this was who I looked to is never bad.
Yes.
Because credit is good.
Yes.
Anything else people want to add on that? And I think we had one last question in the back that will actually be the last question. You in the red T-shirt.
So this is sort of after the original design phase and before the publishing and adding attributions, play testing process. In systems that have it now, it's relative. I
Good luck.
It's really hard. Yeah.
I will tell you, I frequently on smaller publications that I'm keeping more constrained and or I'm not making so much money on. I have frequently done the thing where I have beta readers instead of playtesters for a GM section. What other people have had really good experience getting GMs to run their games for them though, so I like opening up to everybody else. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say is that it's really scary and hard to do, but after you've run it a couple of times, give it to someone else and either ask for their feedback, or if you can and they're okay with it, sit there and watch them run it and don't jump in and don't help them and see where they get stuck and see how they interpret what you have. And that we found is the best way to find out how people will respond to it.
Yeah, blind play tests are your friend as much as they're your enemy in the moment. It's getting that feedback. And it's also, video is really important because you can see what the people are doing a lot of times. So if you can get the audio and the video way more than their words, because their words are just what they felt after processing it. But what they're doing, you can see where they're getting log jammed and stuck.
Yeah.
I'm not strong enough to watch videos of tough play tests, but I respect that answer.
Just, you could do them as fast as you want. You can do them faster.
Similarly, I'm a big proponent of an event if you've got a game store near you and you can get 3 or 4 tables going at the same time of your game, because then you're also not helicoptering over one table and then the players and the GM are like, oh my god, I hope I do a good job for the game designer. But if you've got 3 or 4 tables going, you can sort of do the teacher walking around during group project time thing and check in, and then you have 3 GMs to be like, okay, so how did this go with this table? You're getting more of a sample size. So if you've got a local game store, that's a good way to kind of
and if you do it that way, you can people can also ask, be like, hey, what could you explain this for me? And then you can help them with their experience better, and then you can make a note of, oh, they had to have me explain this to them. So instead of fully just throwing them into the deep end, being there if they do need help, so it doesn't hurt everyone involved. Just make note of what they ask you during the playtest and be like, oh, okay, this is how I explained it. This is how I made it better for them, and then write that down and put it in the game.
And with the door open, I think we are being evicted.
All right.
Panel producer is nodding yes. So thank you all for coming. We will, I think, hang out in the hall for a minute, but only for a minute. There's a bar.
Yeah, we won't be here all weekend.
Yeah.
It'll be hard to find us. We're all at the MITS. Yeah, we're all over there.
But thank you to my co-panelists.